Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Florida Makes webinar on artificial intelligence practical solutions. I am Mike Aller, the Vice President of Manufacturing Intelligence and Programs for Florida Makes. Florida Makes is a nonprofit association that supports manufacturing across the state of Florida. Our mission is to strengthen and advance Florida's manufacturing economy, and our vision is for Florida to become recognized as a global leader in manufacturing. We're very happy to offer today's webinar as part of a broader array of resources and services that we offer to manufacturers. We are an objective third party that helps support manufacturers through business advisory solutions, through a network of manufacturing experts, and we are primarily connectors, problem solvers, and accelerators for our manufacturing industry. Some of the key takeaways that we hope that you take from today's webinar are, first of all, that you can help identify some initial workflows for being able to apply artificial intelligence to improve your company's operations, helping to understand which artificial intelligence tools might be relevant and might be able to solve some of your issues. Also, the opportunity to build some greater efficiency and cost savings into your operations, identify areas where you might be able to have process improvements and some workflow changes that can help increase your productivity and the efficiency of your operations. And then basically just to increase your visibility toward artificial intelligence and what it might be able to do to help your business, while also identifying and addressing any potential safety or intellectual property concerns that you might have. And finally, just making sure that you're able to have a toolkit of practical AI-related solutions that you can implement in the next month or so. Identify some initial resources and initial tools that you might be able to take advantage of and be able to explore and begin to kick the tires on these new technologies. Next slide, please. So with that, I'm very happy to introduce Greg Serio. Greg is a subject matter expert in artificial intelligence and its applications for small companies. He runs TruePulse OS, a firm that helps small and medium manufacturers bring artificial intelligence into their operations in a practical way, focusing on workflow first and operator in the loop type of systems. He works where the work actually happens, on the shop floor, in the planning meeting, in the supplier call, not in terms of talking in strategy, but in terms of talking about actual direct operational impact and where these types of solutions might be able to plug into your existing systems and your existing operations as seamlessly as possible. His anchor engagement right now is an embedded operations role in a global life sciences manufacturer, supporting a multi-year supply chain transformation, focusing on real P&L, real shop floor, not a slideshow. It's built on what TruePulse OS is built on one conviction: the manufacturer who win the next decade will treat AI as part of their working operating system, not as a magic wand. Greg, I look forward to the presentation.
Thank you for the introduction, Mike. Like you said, I'm Greg Serio, also a lifelong Floridian, and I'm also joined by my partner, who's also an AI implementer, if you could sum up what we do. So this is Chris O'Toole. He's also an AI executive, so with 30 plus years of experience, helps me with my 20 years experience in this industry. I do have a little bit of a lean background, and I am extremely passionate about helping small and medium-sized businesses compete. And some of the key takeaways that I want you guys to leave with today is, really practical. AI is brought up in just about every single conversation right now. So we wanted to keep it practical today. I want you to leave this webinar, hang up with us, go straight to your AI and start creating, because it's not some scary term, and I don't want to talk theory. I want to give you some practical applications here, and also kind of talk about what it is and what it isn't. Also, where are you burning some time? So in the next 30 days, you're going to have some ideas to get that time back. Also, how can you feel safe using AI as we move into the future? And also, a lot of leaders on this call, how can you address your team and give some practical ways and approaches on how you can do that? But first, I want to start off with what AI actually is. So you might hear some of these terms, and everyone should have a link to this. This whole slide deck is usable in the future. So you'll hear things like LLM, or a large language model. So it's a software that's going to predict the next word in a sequence, and you're going to learn a lot more about pattern recognition today. So it starts to look at patterns, trained on enough data so the output is usable. Generative AI is another term. So as we're using AI, it's you can generate different products. So like you've probably seen a lot of AI generated videos. So through this, you'll learn some practical ways that you can use generative AI like today with things like your SOPs, quality documents, meeting minutes, a lot of things that are admin work that you can use AI for. And then something like an AI agent. This is where it gets really interesting because an agent is an LLM that's given a set of tools. It can actually go do the work for you. So it can take actions and answer questions. You may have seen a lot of these in practice when you call your dental office and they want you to schedule an appointment. You might be talking to an AI agent. And then we're going to talk about another word is agentic workflow. So this is where you have an entire work stream full of agents where you're the orchestrator and you're orchestrating to these different agents that are going to execute and go do the work. And then another fun term, we're not here quite yet, but we will be in the future, AGI or artificial general intelligence. It's AI that can match a human across the board. It's not what we're going to be talking about today, but this is something in the future that, we're actively moving towards. So the concept of AI, it's not some new thing that just popped up. It sounds like it's new, but I mean, if we go back to say like the 1600s, the first invention of the abacus, we've always been trying to find ways to automate and simulate what a human can do. Then if you kind of take the journey across time and you look at, say, the 1980s, where, the personal computer was invented. So everyone started to have a PC at their house. And then the internet wave that started in the 1990s, right? Just like any new technology, it starts off cutting edge and then it eventually becomes adapted. Because, if you look at the 2000s, the internet.com revolution, and then fast forward with the invention of, say, an iPhone, no one in the 80s thought that they would be able to have computing power in their hand. So our phones are generally more powerful than the supercomputers of yesterday. So then if we talk about where we are today, AI, it's kind of a machine that can act like a human. We've been working towards this for, decades. So now the barrier to entry has become so low that everyone has a chance right now, especially on the front end of this revolution, to get there. So a key word here with what is AI, I would say it's the word inference. So there's a lot of manufacturing companies on here. So if we're thinking of in terms of like, say, a CNC program, we had to program that machine step by step to tell it exactly what to do. So especially same with your old software, you had to like program it to tell it exactly what to do. With AI, it can learn a pattern, and as long as you're starting with the end in mind, you can really start to let it infer and train it, and it'll start filling in the gaps for you. So it can figure out those different steps in between and continue to learn as you give it more context. So another thing here is AI is not going to be some magic wand. It's not going to do exactly what you want it to do all the time. But what it does do is it can read patterns. So the pattern recognition is a key part of this. So you'll hear things like context window and things like that. The more context you give it, it's going to recognize those patterns. Same with your language reasoning. You know, say we wanted to, you upload three different supplier quotes to a chat and say, compare these and show me what the outliers are. Those are ways that you have to give it that context in order for it to understand what it's doing. Otherwise, it won't give you the desired results. And then what it'll also do is workflow acceleration. It's not going to do it on day one without the right training and context. So it can't just, the AI is not going to be able to start on day one, go into your ERP and create a PO. You can use that as the end in mind, but you can also learn how to take it from 45 minutes down to 5. So that being said, AI use can be broken down into these 3 layers, right? So our first layer, and this is where majority of people are right now. We all got used to using Google to where the word Google is now in our dictionary, but your level 1, it's kind of like an AI assistant, right? Think about those emails that you might draft or so, hey, find a better way to say this to somebody without letting them know how mad I am. That's a level 1. So it's kind of like your chat bot. It's useful, but you're really not getting the full use out of it. You might get some incremental gains. Maybe you get 2 to 4 hours. So then when we go to level 2, level 2 is where you can start to see some real gains here. So this is your AI that's kind of your co-working partner, right? So you can build some workflows in here, some great examples that I'll be able to kind of show you all today is, it can draft actions, it can review meeting minutes. So, instead of waiting for somebody to take meeting minutes and send them afterwards, you can just upload a transcription as part of an automated process. And then think in terms of like project management, and it can really start driving actions. And there's different ways that you can kind of surface these expectations. But we're going to try to show you different ways today to go from level 1 to a level 2. Now, level 3, this is the stuff that used to be science fiction, especially anyone that's, follows anything Marvel. Jarvis is real today. So Jarvis is that true AI autopilot where think of all those different admin tasks. Your AI agent can handle those. So it can also make decisions and execute the work for you. So there's no, if we think about a lot of our transactional processes and all those different layers of approval, this is where the AI can help approve those for you based on certain criteria and how you set it up. So the next 12 months for most of you is to get to level 2, and don't just skip to level 3. You're going to get those gains immediately, but your level 3 is what we can look at designing the future towards. So I want to touch on this because your workforce might think that AI is going to replace them. It can't. When we're talking about an industry like manufacturing, if you think about AI, it can't necessarily move molecules for you. What I mean by that is anything that's a physical thing and we're moving it from point A to point B, it's not going to do that right away. A lot of you might have robotics in your operation where AI is actively going towards this, but your people are hearing the wrong message because we want them to hear a message of hope, something that they can build in the future, because you are going to have those people that are subject matter experts in their fields that learn AI. That's who's going to be taking over the jobs of the future. So the idea isn't that AI is going to be implemented and you have to lay off your workforce. That's happening at some of those larger companies because those larger companies have a large hierarchy tree of those approval layers that might be non-value adding. For these small and medium-sized companies, this is a real opportunity for you to empower your team. I'm going to show you some practical ways that we can do that today. But just to be clear, AI is not taking any jobs. It's people that learn and adopt AI right now that are going to get those jobs in the future. So that being said, we already talked about AI not being a magic wand. This is where process has to come first. So anytime we're working with one of our clients and anytime that we're doing business with anyone, we take a look at that process first. Because when you have a strong process and you add AI on top of it, that's where you're going to get your exponential gains. But if you have any type of broken processes and you layer AI over top of it, that's where it's just gonna fail faster for you and cause more problems. So if there's any big takeaway that you can take away from today and you're looking at your processes and maybe even thinking about redesigning some of them, your strong process plus an AI will lead to results, not a broken one. And if you know it's broken, don't even try to put AI over it right now because it's just gonna fail confidently because it's gonna learn a bad process. So now I just want to spend this time to kind of vision cast to you what this could look like for you, because I have a lot of empathy for all you business owners and operations leaders out there that might be buried in your manual tasks or especially admin work. Think about you get your monthly freight invoice from FedEx. And how do you actually verify that you got charged what you're supposed to without manually looking through it? Or say you have those suppliers that, how do I know that my suppliers are performing? Did I get the right price? What are my supplier risks? Is it actually going to be here? So just picture a level 2 workflow where you're getting an automated email every morning that just kind of shows you what you show up, you grab your coffee, you're drinking it, and you're just reading your actual risk assessment without spending an hour and a half looking for what the risks are. It just shows up for you. And then your purchasing team can actually manage exceptions instead of spending half their day just creating and doing all the manual work. They're actually building the supplier relationships to be able to manage exceptions, not have their whole day bogged down in reporting. Picture your supervisors that, they have their morning huddle with their toolbox talk that's already pre-made for them for their safety walk. Picture, you're not trying to hunt down tribal knowledge at this point. You're able to just go right to the actions where, your supervisors has a list of what they need to do today. And then think about all those quality documents that have to be drafted. Your quality engineers out there can have 80% of the work done to where your subject matter experts can be subject matter experts and just verify and approve the results instead of having to bog their day down with actually building a report or go into different NCMRs, different things like that. So then think about your engineers. They're not stuck with a lot of bottlenecks that might be hitting their inbox on different things because it's already an automated report that sends to them after it analyzes different workflows or drawings or programs. And then your engineer can focus on what they love to do best. So this AI helps get rid of all those mundane admin tasks that stop you from doing what you actually love. So in an example that I can give you, a great example is say you're purchasing in suppliers. So, a level 2, something that might take 45 minutes to compare quotes from vendors, AI can do in 5 minutes. And the demo I'm going to show you today is I'm going to be using, and I can put these in the chat, but I'm going to be using a couple different tools, one of which is called Whisper Flow. And what that is a voice to talk, because AI is also changing how we work. Because traditionally, if you think about the computer, right, we're tied to using how many words we can type per minute. With AI, we can just start talking and the ideas start flowing a lot more. So imagine you can upload a couple of different quotes from suppliers and use a tool like Whisper, where you're just talking to your AI and it can start capturing the results for you. So something that may have taken 45 minutes is now just going to take 5. So the demo I'm going to show you all today. So this is my Claude by Anthropic. It's my desktop version. And you could probably see this down here where I have a dictate window. So you all will hear me talking, but you'll start seeing the text pop up in this window. And we think about our tribal knowledge that's on our shop floor, all those operators that your real experience and value is coming from. How do we capture some of that in a way that's repeatable? So I have a lean background, and I'm sure there's a lot of you in the audience that have heard the peanut butter jelly situation. So what I'm going to do is create an SOP right in front of you and show you how easy it is to capture an SOP. So picture you're out on your shop floor and you're just recording audio or a video and capturing good audio of a very specific task that maybe only one person in your plant knows how to do. And if that one person goes on vacation, we want to make sure they can have a great vacation. So in this example, so I'm just going to hit Control Window and you'll see a little pop up there, but I want to make a peanut butter and jelly SOP. And right now I use peanut butter, jelly, bread. I put some peanut butter on there and some jelly on there. I put it together and I cut it in half, and my peanut butter and jelly sandwich is done. And you'll see it whisper flow, and it's WISPR. It's a tool that you can just use to dictate, and it fills in any field like this too. You can write your emails this way. But I have this set. There's different settings here. So when I'm using Claude, I like to use Sonnet. So each one of these levels is how deeply this AI is going to think. With Opus 4.7, it's going to think a lot deeper. But with Sonnet, I don't need too much thinking power here, because I also told it that I want to make an SOP. So I'm just going to hit go. And then it might ask me a couple questions, but it's looking at what it says here. You see a skill MD. So the way AIs ingest information, they use what's called an MD file or a markdown file. It's basically your text file that takes up way less memory than if you wanted to upload a Word document. And then where you see skill, a skill is something like picture a bookshelf like over here. Each one of these books can be a different skill set that I can take off the shelf and use. So when you're working towards a level 2 or a level 3 workflow, you have to train that AI or that large language model on a skill. So it's something like in the Matrix where Neo used to be able to just plug in the back of his head, upload Kung Fu skills, and then now he knows Kung Fu. That's kind of what your skill file is going to be doing. So right now it's using there's millions of skills out there that you can upload into a situation like this, like Claude, and you can just kind of see it working. So it's actually creating a Word document right in front of you. It's just coding it from scratch. And here in a second, it'll generate our SOP. So there's different ways that you can make this a repeatable process, because I'm sure a lot of you in the audience also have a format that you like, or say a controlled document where you have a title block and specific nomenclature. You can create different project spaces to be able to train that AI in that project to build your SOP. And you could even build your branding into the SOP. So you see how I got PBJ SOP version 1. So it kind of knows to put it in an SOP format here. And again, I didn't tell it to use 2 slices or 2 tablespoons or 1.5 tablespoons of jelly. It made that inference on its own. So in your situation, you can capture and get you 80% there, rather than me opening up the Word template that's in my, maybe a saved repository somewhere and manually typing all of this in. It gives me pretty specific instructions here, but if it's wrong, you see I have version 1. I'm just going to tell it that it's wrong here in an example and say, I do use 2 tablespoons of jelly. Remake this to where it shows I have 2 tablespoons of jelly and wheat bread, and I make sure that I cut the crust off before I serve it to my 13-year-old son. and then it'll automatically start making my version 2 for me. And it's just as easy as you having a conversation with it or recording a conversation that you're having with somebody else. And it's updating my bread spec to wheat, and it's updating my jelly quantity to 2 tablespoons. So in a matter of a couple of minutes, I can have a full-blown SOP that I can hand off to somebody else. Or maybe I want to hand it off to my quality team for them to verify. Either way, I just cut out probably half hour to 45 minutes of work of manually typing out one of my SOPs. Now, that being said, by the time I get back to, I'm going to let it keep thinking here in a second. I want to talk about where AI is safe. So a lot of you are running on modern day, maybe even a cloud-based ERP system. When you buy an enterprise or a business license from a place like Claude, they run on those same rules. So when you sign a contract, they actually segment your information off, and it's secure, following those same guidelines that an ERP is going to use. So if you enter your data into a business license, it's safe. It's safe and secure in the cloud, and your AI and your license will show you how safe it really is. So what I mean by that, if you have a free license, the free license is what uses to train all LLMs. That's where your information is going to be shared with others. So just a key thing to talk about here is if you're going to use this for your operations and you want to make sure it's secure within your operations, it's very safe at that point. And if you wanted to take it to a whole nother level, you can actually create a local LLM that's built inside of your server. So it's not in the cloud, it's all inside your server, and then it makes it 100% secure at that point. So you'll see a lot of people talking about, the flex in the future that people are going to have. It's not going to be the fancy new boat or the fancy new car. You're going to hear people talking about them having their own servers that they can have their own LLM in. That's also where I've seen a lot of industries trends start happening. So especially for some of those smaller shops, maybe running on an LLM locally, it might be a little bit slower and less powerful, but just depends on what type of security you want to have. But a lot of this is very safe for these mundane tasks that you're trying to do. But the bottom line here, the security question can be solved. It's no different than how you're interacting with your current ERP software. So my next big question, and before I get to my next big question, I'll show you see how I can have all of my teaspoons here. It makes a lot of those changes for me. And this is just a basic SOP build. So think about all those other different admin tasks where you're manually typing these things out. That's where this is going to be powerful. Like you can hang up with us today and go start running these things to get some of your time back and working towards a level 2 or even a level 3. So that being said, there's a lot of talk on ownership. So what I mean by that is, in a traditional business organization structure, you're going to have your senior leadership, maybe your C-suite at the top. Where does AI fit for your business? Who is going to own it? And a lot of places don't currently have an owner. So maybe it's not IT, maybe it's not operations alone, maybe it's not finance, quality, or even HR by themselves, because AI is something that's going to impact your whole business, not just those individual silos. And the honest question that you have to do, and the honest answer is that nobody owns it today. So, which means if nobody owns it, then probably no progress might happen. So what's going to happen and who's going to own this next Monday when you go into the office? It's just a question that you should think about, especially as if you have a 20-person shop. Who's going to be that real driver inside your business that helps push and own the AI operations? Now, that being said, with that ownership question in mind, here's three practical ways that you can get started. First is option one. Just enable everybody in your shop. So, just buy enterprise licenses for your whole team, depending on your size, because you can run these things for 30 days and encourage people to use it. And what I mean by that is, if they're not using AI today, it creates a culture of learning, not one of condemning the AI, thinking that it's going to take their job. So, like I said before, AI is not taking jobs, it's the people that learn AI. And I think you'll be shocked at who your standouts are going to be. I'm sure there's a lot of you in the audience that might have that person in mind on who's going to take it and run with it. But if you get a license for 30 days, celebrate those wins and then create that culture. Set up meetings or set up the shop huddle. Who used AI today? How did it help you get some time back? And you'll find that the 10 to 20% of your high performers are going to be the ones coming back to you with new, fresh ideas on how it can be implemented. So if that doesn't work for your business, there's always option two. So if you think about Skunkworks, it was widely successful for years on developing ridiculously innovative technology. So when you have two or three high performers and you just want to create that SWAT team, that your SEAL Team 6 of AI, grab those three high performers and give them projects, buy them the licenses, and then enable them to go develop and build these new processes. Because I think if you give them the air cover that they need and the support that they would need to empower them to do it, I think you're going to be very happy with the results that they're going to come back with. Again, there's those two or three people that you might have in mind already. Just get them the license, let them go. And then option number three. So that's you create an AI design team. So what this AI design team would be able to do, you have all of your legacy processes. Don't kill any of those processes yet. Let your AI design team design that same process to run in parallel so you can validate the results. And then at a point that you're comfortable with, once the results are validated, let it loose. You can kill the legacy process at that point, train the new process, and then start experiencing the savings. So a big suggestion that I have for you is when you're doing these, it's good to have somebody that's kind of a guide. So that's what Chris and I do for a living is we kind of help guide this option three, those design teams, because a lot of you might know, especially from a design for manufacturing standpoint, you have to now design for AI. Your traditional business systems might not be set up for AI. So when you're designing it from scratch, you have to take into consideration, how can AI handle this? Because it is changing your work. So I suggest that you find that person that can come help lead these teams and guide them. And those people are, just Chris and I see it every single day when we can help design a process for AI and manufacturability. It goes back to that. We want to make sure that that process is sound before we lay AI on top of it, but it has to be designed. So also a quick note here, this is where a lot of those flat organizations win, especially if you have less approval layers that you need to go through. So those small and medium-sized businesses like yourself are perfect fit to move into the future using this option three or even the option one and two. But a lot of the success that we've seen is when you enable your team, create a culture of learning, and really develop your own AI center of excellence. So that being said, think about what you're going to do come Monday morning. Just kind of put in the chat, because I'd love to have some time to follow up with anyone in this audience to give this presentation to your team. But also just type I'm in, you want to get to level 2, and it's something that can start as soon as tomorrow morning or even after you end this call. So you can reach out to myself, Chris, or Mike to schedule some time to get into that AI journey. But your one workflow that your team complains about every week is usually a place that you can start. So think about where you're getting the heaviest complaints. Like I said, some of the best places that you can start is places like shipping and receiving, comparing your freight forwarding invoices, purchasing as far as, how can I make sure I get the best price and value? Things like quality control, especially drafting different SOPs. The sky's the limit with this, and your imagination is going to be the only limiting factor here. And just to end it off, just think David and Goliath. Especially this is where AI is where David truly beats Goliath. So if we think about that story of David, he rips off all that armor that he had, knowing that he needed to be quick and nimble to take down the massive Goliath that had all sorts of armor, was 3 times his size. AI can be your personal David, where you're going to be able to take down the big guy. So with that being said, thank you for having me today. Would love to open it up with Mike for some any additional questions, and I'll put the link to this in the chat.
Absolutely. Thank you, Greg, and thank you for your insight. There's great intelligence there and some really good ideas. I wanted to, first of all, we had one question that came in kind of in the course of the presentation. I see a couple more that are coming through now, but the question is, if you run your own large language model, how does it keep up with improvements in the underlying large language models? So I guess this is referring to the slide, I think it was 3 or 4 back, specifically about the the opportunity to use your own in-house large language model, which would then basically keep your data within your 4 walls of your operation.
Chris, can you take that question?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a few questions. First thing is, if you're required to run it in-house, let's define what that means. If in-house means on the edge server or on a site server, that's one thing. Oftentimes people call in-house having a dedicated enterprise solution with one of the large language model providers. Right now, I would recommend, for example, Anthropic or Claude. They can run that in the cloud on a virtual private server for you and create your own self-hosted or self-managed LLM, where all your data stays within that server. It's not mixed in with anyone else. They can be DLT HIPAA compliant doing that. If you want to put it on your server locally, that's a different conversation that the enterprise team at Anthropic can do for you as well. Of course, there's some legal regulations, but if you want to go to another level, which is put an open source LLM on your local server, very, very doable. And then to answer your question succinctly, what would happen is whether Claude or the open source LLM would provide you with those upgrades and patches. Generally speaking, the LLMs are mature enough, they're not going to need a lot of upgrades. In fact, the upgrades will be just the opposite. They'll point the LLM to start training off of your data and not general data, which makes it even more valuable. It's a little bit more advanced approach, but a lot of larger companies are doing that. Because again, remember, these large language model, LLM was trained off general knowledge of the entire universe. Basically, they scanned and took everything off the internet and everything else they could train these models with. By having your own LLM, you have security, and you start training the LLM with your proprietary specific company information. So there are some benefits there as well. Okay. Good question, though. We can talk about it more, but there's a handful of approaches to putting LLM locally, both for security and for training purposes, and how to keep it upgraded.
Yeah, so there's a question here, and thank you. And please do put your questions into the chat function. You can see that button down at the bottom in the menu at the bottom. You can click on that and type in your questions, and we'll try and get to as many of them as we can today. There's a question. My business has some standard operating procedures, but much of it is reliant on my team's expertise. Documenting is a 6-month project I don't have much time for. What kind of return on investment can I expect for this amount of time investment?
Yeah, I see that one in there. That's a kind of the peanut butter and jelly example that I shared. So it's really more of integrating it into your work. So as your experienced operators are working, either recording using, different audio or video, mostly audio, you'll see that these LLMs are extremely intelligent and picking up some of those. So have it be your coworker of those people. And it's not like the SOPs of yesterday where you have to like sit there and interview that person. Just record them working, have them talk and interact with you, ask them questions, just keep it recorded and drop it into your LLM. And just like I showed you with that example, it'll generate the SOP right there. So it's almost same day instead of 6 months now. So there's really a minimal investment. You're just needing a little bit of time, meeting them where the work is already happening. Same thing with all your, a lot of what I do when I work with transactional processes, I'll just have the person send a Teams invite and record a team session with a transcript of them sharing the screen, talking through what they're doing, take the transcript, and then it can also capture screenshots as you work. So it's really meant to not interrupt your workflow, but complement it. So again, it's changing your
I
thing.
would add to that. At the end of the day, depending on what you're trying to do, is like, why do you need the SOP? That's the first question you ask yourself. Now, if you need the SOP for compliance or for your people, if you think about SOPs, they're typically written so you can reproduce work, so people can reproduce work, right? So that's one thing. Now, if you're not, when we say SOP, if you're trying to make something agentic, meaning AI augmented, enhance that workflow, you actually don't need a formalized SOP because it's not a human work instruction. Okay, so you'll just have to digest that a little bit, right? Remember, high level, you can map out the process itself, and then AI can infer back the details. Where the humans come in, become very, very important. The humans are the validators now. Let AI write the SOP for you based on what it infers. And then humans become even more valuable than they have been before because now they're the validators of the SOP or the process. That's how you accelerate and get faster. Or the second methodology is to actually run a digital twin, what they call a digital twin in parallel, put into inference and let it recreate the process for you, and then let your experts define the SOP and whether it's correct or not. All right? Okay.
Great. There was I think a similar question here about someone who's tried to use transcripts from meetings to generate minutes, but the software has a challenge discerning the language. For example, when they discuss certain jobs, it doesn't recognize the action items in the discussion. Is that something that you need to train the AI on your nomenclature and on the acronyms that you use in your business and so on? And how are some methodologies to go ahead and do that?
Yeah, I can. So one approach that I would say I see Alex wrote that in there. So what I didn't share today, they have what's called projects. So you can create a project in, say, Anthropic, GPT, all these larger language models. They can build a project and you put project instructions in there. So especially if there's like tribal knowledge specific terminology that you might be using, you can build that list of things like, especially if language is a barrier or even different languages are spoken, you can just build that into the project instruction to look for that, and that would be part of the training. So it's fairly easy to set up the first couple, and that's where, like Chris was saying, your validator. If you as the validator that's interacting with the AI, after you put the transcript in and something feels wrong or off, just tell it you were wrong. This is where lock, and you can even say lock this into your memory or lock this into a skill like I shared. And that would be part of the training process.
Right. This goes back to level 1 and 2. Like if you're using it for level one is kind of like using it as a chat bot. I'm going to put my meeting transcript in there, and then I wanted to create action plans and stuff. You got to understand that level 1, if you're using level 1, it doesn't have persistent memory and it doesn't have context. It starts all over with every chat. So what you would do is move to level 2 and create an AI project where you would keep the nomenclature, the project plan, previous meeting minutes and stuff like that, and AI would build a comprehensive, cohesive, and coherent action plan, with a critical path, milestones, etc., because you would just tell it, hey, this meeting is about this project, and AI would put that in a project and keep all the persistent memory. Persistent memory means when you use Chat GPT, like at level 1, every time you start a new chat, it forgets everything it knew before. Okay, so in level 2, you use things like co-work and projects where it keeps all that persistent memory, like your action plans and your project plans, and it can update that.
Right. We have another question here on how these types of tools might be able to be applied to manufacturing floor analytical data collected from computer numerically controlled machines, CNC machines, for example, potentially predicting future machine failures or quality issues, kind of, predictive analytics on maintenance.
Absolutely. That's a very powerful way, because again, if you have a pattern in your data that you can have an AI continually look at that, it can start to predict. Especially a great application for this is, say your preventative maintenance schedule. If it knows that that machine hasn't been maintained or reset, or depending on what it is, and especially it might even be able to look at the code itself to be able to predict when your failure mode is going to happen. That would be a great use case for, like Chris was saying, a project, especially if say you're running picture the Haas machine, and you're constantly having quality issues on a certain part. Have it start to try to recognize what pattern is happening. And then, Chris could probably speak to another layer to this, but anywhere that there's a pattern recognition of where it can realize failure before it happens, it's a great use case for how that can be applied. It can absolutely start looking into where your machine might fail or have quality issues in the future.
Yeah,
Things like toolware.
AI is actually pretty good at this, Greg. It's actually very, very scary good at this. In fact, AI is optimized to do that. If you think what AI is, it's a predictive machine. Okay, it uses full statistics, so it can take the raw data out of a CNC machine, analyze it, and predict things like tool wear, tool slippage, optimal speed and feed rates, and those types of things that typically only your skilled human would know from just sheer experience. You normally would have a setup card, etc., that would set up the baseline and kind of set up the calibration and engage. But AI is extremely good at doing dynamic machine adjustments and doing predictive maintenance and predictive failure analysis. All right. Okay.
Great. Yes, thank you. And I think we had, I don't see any additional questions on, there's one that just came in about real-time collection of data. Is there an opportunity to have kind of feed real-time into a model to give you analytics?
Absolutely. Chris, you want to kind of speak to that one? Real-time data collection from.
Let's talk about that. So first of all, because it is a computer, it's obviously as good as anything out there in the world to take real-time data and do collection. The other thing, if you're only running, say, shift work, another thing to optimize what you're doing without a lot of infrastructure overhead is just have it work at night or working off shifts and take the same data if you don't need it to be real time. But if you need real-time adjustment, absolutely 100% it can do that. There's a couple of emerging technologies that are coming out, if you're talking about machine shops in particular, called edge computing, where we put the AI closer to the machines themselves so that it has real-time data and real-time adjustments to the machine if you want that feedback loop, right?
Great, yeah. No, I think this has been an enormously insightful session, and we had a lot of different covered a lot of different topics today. Obviously, kind of some of the basics of artificial intelligence and what it can do and what it is, and also sort of some of the areas of to consider in looking at how to implement it and how to go about doing that both organizationally within your company, as well as thematically on what types of things to maybe take a look at as first projects. Obviously, there are a number of different opportunities for efficiency and cost savings, many of which we talked about in terms of as a standard operating procedure development and other things. And hopefully we've given you a couple of different ideas for practical AI solutions that you might be able to implement within the next month or so. So if you have any questions, please don't, additional questions or specific questions on your specific situation, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, either to us directly at FloridaMakes, to Greg and Chris and the team at TruePulse OS. And thank you again for your time and attention today. We do have the opportunity for you here to get connected to your local manufacturers expert here within the state of Florida. And we look forward to future webinars on this and related topics in the coming weeks. So please keep an eye on your email for more in this line. Thank you very much again for your time. We'll give you back a few moments of your morning this morning. And thank you. Have a great day and a great week.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. See ya.